Hi everyone, this is Mel, and today I'm going to be talking to you about my learning through the design of the lesson page, as well as my reflections about the process. So first things first was I decided on the topic that I wanted to teach, and this would be challenges in a diverse society, prejudice and misconceptions. So as always, the planning took a lot. No, the planning didn't take longer than the programming, but it was a big and essential part of helping me decide what I needed to plan. So once I had the topic in mind, I actually went back to the curriculum syllabus to extract the learning outcomes that students need to achieve at the end of the module. Now, I felt personally that these learning outcomes were rather broad. So what I did was that I attempted to break them down into smaller bite-sized goals, which I will refer to as success criteria. Now, I broke these success criteria down into student-friendly language so that students would have a clear picture of what was expected of them. I personally feel that this makes learning less intimidating, and as a result, students feel like they are more likely to achieve it and hence are more motivated, um, motivated during the lesson experience. Now, I knew that this entire topic couldn't be taught in just one activity alone. So what I did was that after the success criteria were created, I then came up with the activities that would help the students to demonstrate that they had been able to achieve these particular success criteria. So if you look below, there are actually 4 main activities, and they've all been written up in question format. And the purpose of this is actually to get students into the mental framework of being an inquirer. So an investigator who is taking in new information and synthesizing it with what they already know in order to attain new knowledge that will help them to answer these particular questions. So if you take a look at the homepage, it actually shows the students how many activities they have to complete by the end of the lesson. And I personally felt that this was important because it actually provided students with a sense of autonomy, gave them the idea that they actually were in control of the pace of the lesson, so that it would actually minimize the threat of cognitive overload, because the students themselves would know how much information they could be taking in at a given point of time. Naturally, the teacher will also have to track their progress and just to ensure that they actually finish all 4 activities in the given duration that they have. So what I did actually was, on the page itself, I actually included the success criteria that were related to the activity. Now, I've actually programmed it such that students can check it off after they have achieved that particular success criteria. And I felt that this actually was an important mini activity for the students to give them the idea that they were in control of their own learning. It encouraged them to track their own progress. It made very explicit what was expected of them by the time they finished this particular activity. And because they knew what was expected of them, it also kind of put learning into their own hands, because they could identify where they were on that particular scale towards achieving the success criteria and what steps they would need to take in order to get from where they were to where they needed to be. Now, there were several mini activities within this activity, and what I really want to emphasize is the use of scaffolds within the lesson. So for example, I Think, I Wonder is a thinking routine, and I actually used it in relation to the video because I wanted to provide students with a framework to help them make sense of the information that they were processing. I personally feel sometimes that when you show videos in class, students get caught in by the entire action and they don't know what to pay attention to, just because there's so much information coming in at the same time. So I felt that providing them with this framework would help them to make sense of the information that they were processing, help them focus their attention. Moving forward, knowing that in recognition of learning being a social process, I actually embedded these Wordle activities. So basically how it works is that each student goes to the particular website, keys in the code, in this case, keys in the code, and then they are able to submit the answer. So what does stereotype mean to you? It could mean a belief. It could mean a negative thing. It could be biasness. And what I really appreciated about it was that on the live feed, the answers would appear. So students would be able to see their peers' understandings of this particular concept, which allowed them to actively construct and reconstruct their understanding of the concept. It also drove home the idea that different people have different perspectives of the same issue, and that it didn't necessarily mean it was wrong, which kind of made them broaden their understanding and perspective of the concept itself. Now, all this was kind of in abstract format, so the next thing that I wanted them to do was to actually articulate down the unifying underlying ideas for each concept. So if you see, there'll probably be quite a few, and then the bigger or the more common the idea, the larger the word becomes. And I thought that was important for the students to have the opportunity to take what they had learned from the Wordle and articulate it into a sentence format so that it would be easier for them to retrieve as we moved forward. Now, finally, there was a quick quiz, and the purpose of the quiz was actually to help the teacher. Well, it was twofold. One was to help the students check whether or not they really understood the difference between a stereotype and a prejudice. And second was that the data collected could actually help the teacher identify if there were any misconceptions for an individual or for the class in general. And this would allow the teacher to then provide customized feedback and also decide on the teaching topics or the instructions for the next section of the activity. So in terms of coding, what did I learn? I learned how to include feedback, which I feel is very important. So when the student gets the wrong answer, they are told it's wrong. I mean, I haven't crafted the feedback, but I think that was a very important part of the learning experience, because then students know exactly where they've gone wrong and what they need to do to resolve it. So yeah, hope you learned something.